One of the common questions we get about access cameras is how you can export events or metadata to a file that you can download and open directly in Excel to do further analysis. The reason you might want to do this is because it's a very simple setup. You don't need any other complex infrastructure like video management software and cloud services or anything like that. You just export a file directly from the camera and open it in Excel, where you can do your data analytics or whatever you might want to do with it. And in this example, we're going to use the FixedIT QR Code Decoder. So we can see it now detecting QR codes in the screen and decoding the value of them. But you can do exactly the same process with the built-in events in the access cameras, information from other third-party applications and so forth. Because the interesting thing in this scenario is that FixedIT QR Code Decoder doesn't know how to export data to Excel specifically. So instead we're going to use the FixedIT Data Agent as a data bridge. So what we have done here is that apart from installing the QR Code Decoder that scans the frame, we have also installed the FixedIT Data Agent. And this is the key in this use case. So you can see the FixedIT Data Agent a little bit like Zapier, that is for the cloud, but this is for your edge device. So it can consume data from different sources, convert, transform the data, automate the workflows, and export the data in different formats. So if I open this and we go to the Configuration Files tab, we can see that I have already uploaded a configuration file that reads QR code detections from our application. So this is one of the standard configuration files we have in our open repository, so you can just copy paste it. But if you want to ingest data from another service in the camera, you can just write a custom config file with a input definition and template format explaining how to parse the data. But now we already have the data, so we can see here that it's logged into the log. As soon as we get a QR code detection, it's getting logged directly to the log in the data agent. So if we go back to files, what we can do now is that we can create a new configuration file. I'm going to call this save QR codes to CSV .csv, because it's a CSV, a comma separated value format that we're going to save it as. So then I expand this and click on edit, and I can now paste some code here or some configuration. So what this does is that it says that we should consume the QR code detections, which is what is produced by this one. We're going to output it to this file, and we're going to use the CSV format. We're going to add a header to it, so Excel knows what the content in the different columns are. We're going to set the CSV separator, and we're going to tell it how to format a timestamp. So this particular format is one that Excel will automatically understand when you import the data. And then we're going to type the different columns that we should put in the file. So in this case, we have the timestamp of the event. We have the decoded data field, so what was actually in the QR code, and what kind of code was it? Was it a QR code? Was it a one-dimensional barcode, and so forth? So now I'm just going to enable this configuration, and now it will start saving this. So we can go back to the logs and see when metrics are being written here. We can also, of course, look in the live view and see when the code is actually visible. So we see that it's visible now, so we should have some new log messages here. That also means that we will have a new CSV file created here. And I can preview the CSV file here. So we see that we just have values from one barcode, the hello world barcode. So let's wait a little bit more until we see the other side of it, which we are doing now. So if I click refresh on this one, we see that now we have some more values. So now we have a bit more interesting data. So let's now click on the download button to download this CSV file. I can open it directly. Since I'm on a Mac, it will open it in this other program instead, not Excel. but I can of course go to my downloads folder and right click this and open with Excel. And now we will see one of the issues here once Excel open is that I get everything into one column. And the reason for this is because I'm in EU, so my language settings for Excel tells it that it should use semicolons instead of comma, since we use comma for decimal notation. So either I could just import it instead here and explicitly tell it to use comma instead. But instead what I'm going to do is to edit this save configuration, and instead of saving as comma separated, I'm going to save it as semicolon separated, which is what my Excel is set up to expect. And I'm just going to delete this file so we not adding the new format together with the old format. And again, we need to wait for the QR code to be visible. So if we refresh the page now, we should see that we have a new CSV file created. If we preview it, we see that we have now semicolon separated instead. So let's just wait until we have a few more values again from the other side of the sticker. Now we see this one being decoded also, so let's refresh, and we see they start being added here. So I'm going to download this again, going back to my downloads folder and open with Excel. And now we can see that we get one column per data item, or one column per column. So what I can do now is of course start working with this data just like any other data in Excel. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create a table of this. So now I can do filtering if I want to filter out to only have one of the decoded values, for example. I can do that. I can do ordering of it. I can of course create a pivot table if I want to do that. So maybe we want to see the values per different code type. So if we take the decoded data and then code type, so here we can see that both of those are QR codes. If we had barcodes, they would end up in a different section. And we can of course start logging the different values, so or plotting. So let's create a line graph of the timestamps, so we can see that the first 27 detections were quite close in time, and then we had a bit of a gap before the other side of it was visible. And we can of course do the same with the decoded data, start creating different kind of visualizations here. Maybe not a but yeah, now when the data is in Excel, you can of course do anything you want to do with it. So yeah, Excel is not my area of expertise, but if Excel is what you want want the data in, I'm sure that you know exactly what to do with the data now once it is here. So that was everything I wanted to show about using the FixedIT Data Agent to export any kind of event data, metadata, third-party application data, any kind of data that exists in your camera. You can now save to a CSV file, download it, and open it in Excel.